Vertigo Voices. I actually should have picked a different one because that one wasn't quite the elegant end to it. Welcome to Vertigo Voices!
We have a theme song.
We have a theme song now. Courtesy of my daughter's Casio Rap Man.
Thank you, Lily.
So, everyone, welcome. Episode 15. We're back from winter break. Survived 2020 by the skin of our teeth. And we're well into the tumultuous year of 2021.
Oh, yes. I want to say Happy New Year, but let's just go with safe, tolerable, sane.
We're, I don't know, we're getting there.
We are. The year's not over yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's already looking up. We've survived an attempted insurrection, and all things considered, I mean, got through it probably as well as we could.
We did.
So, after we got that off the board, I mean, what could be worse? Please don't quote me on that, because it's going to get so much worse.
Knock on any available wood in your immediate vicinity.
Okay, so, phone check.
I think we're good.
Think or no?
This is so embarrassing to admit on a podcast, but I pressed the little button, but I don't know if I okay, all right.
You're not pressing it.
You're pushing it.
No, look, it's back and forth kind of thing.
See?
It's like a toggle switch.
I learned something new this year, folks. Colby shows me the way.
Okay. So now we've got some news. Surprisingly, not a whole lot of news over the last 5 weeks, or however long we've been gone.
Has it been 5 weeks?
I don't know. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
We recorded in November last time, before Thanksgiving.
Was that really the last time?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So anyway, we're back. They've got some news. Not much news. How much news? Not much news. First thing, there has been an official cast member of the Sandman TV series announced.
Do tell.
Gwendolyn Christie has joined the
Really?
cast. Yes.
Who?
No one knows. No character yet. But yes, Gwendolyn Christie of Star Wars and Game of Thrones fame has joined Sandman. There's a ton of characters she could play. People are saying Death or Desire. I don't think she's playing either of those. I think she's probably too tall for Death, and she's too feminine for Desire. I mean, I feel like you have to go androgynous or trans with Desire.
Good point.
I feel like you absolutely have to. And I don't think she's going to be either of those. Somebody on, I think, Twitter suggested Joanna Constantine.
You don't think so?
Who knows? There's a lot of people she could play, and I'm not prepared to make any wild assumptions yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Regardless, I mean, she's an actor with a lot of range. She's British. There's literally almost any female character on that show she could play, so who knows?
What if they stuck her in a red, long tresses and she was war? Not war, excuse me, destruction.
Destruction? Ah. Yeah, could be. I don't know that he's going to be in this first chunk of episodes, though.
Just not feeling it?
I think it's going to be a fairly literal adaptation of the first few issues or whatever. He doesn't show up till, I think, volume 3? I don't know. Regardless, there's going to be a lot of speculation. The article that I read that announced this also said that Tom Sturridge was officially cast as Dream, which is the one that I said was speculated a while ago. I don't think there's been an official word, though. So I don't think that's true. I think he's still just speculated. But I don't know. We'll see. The fact of the matter is there has been casting announcements, even though the show's already been filming, so who knows?
Cards very close to the chest.
Yeah.
Well, that's great that she's in it.
Yeah, sounds really cool. The other news, the womp news, there actually has been a fair amount of word of this. There's new Snyder Cut news.
Oh, boy.
First things first, Zack Snyder said that he really wants to make a comic book sequel to Justice League. Like a comic book sequel, not a movie. He said that he's talked to WB about it, and he really wants to move forward with that. Then, a week later, there was an interview in New York Times with Walter Hamada, the head of Warner Brothers, who said, basically, no fucking way. Here's his actual quote. DC Films has no plans to follow up on Justice League the Snyder Cut or include Zack Snyder in any future films. The paper describes Hamada's view of the project as a street that leads nowhere. So it's a good thing they sunk $70 million into it.
No kidding. I wish I had that kind of budget for my bad ideas.
Yeah. A street that leads nowhere. That's the official word from the head of Warner Brothers. There's also been a shitload of drama between Warner Brothers and Ray Fisher, the actor that plays Cyborg in Justice League. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I have not.
He has been accusing them of, unprofessional conduct, specifically going after Joss Whedon and Jeff Johns, the producer, and I don't know, he's been a comic book writer forever, but he's been going after them a lot. Warner Brothers is holding the line, saying, like, we looked into it, whatever needed to be done was done, the end. Then they said that he's not going to be in the Flash movie, because he was supposed to be. Then he said, yes, I am. Then, like, a week later, he said, no, I'm not. It's just been a really weird back and forth between them with almost zero information. It's just been really fucking weird. And it's getting really frustrating on both sides. Now he's officially out in the role of Cyborg. He's not playing Cyborg anymore. And what's even weirder to me also is Cyborg was his first film role.
Oh, really?
Like, he'd never been in a movie before. His cameo in Batman vs. Superman and then the role in Justice League. So a part of me is almost like, does he just not know how movies get made? or again, is there something serious that happened? And there's literally no knowing. Because Warner Brothers, again, said that they looked into it and that it's been dealt with, and that's all they're saying. And then their most recent comment to him was like, look, it's just time for everyone to move on. Like, the movie came out 4 years ago now. Like, let's just fucking move on.
Huh. Well, yeah, no context, really.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I have no idea what side to take on that situation. I just know that it's really weird. And it's just especially weird given his situation in the movie and in the film business.
That is rather odd. Huh.
Anyway, I didn't really want to talk about that, but I felt like this whole Snyder Cut shit needed some more context.
Well, now I know.
One more little bit of added material. Our last episode, I talked about Doctor Who.
Yes.
And that at one episode that I really liked with Jodie Whittaker, where she met a new doctor. And I was like, oh, there was no payoff yet. Well, I finally got to the payoff for it. Oh. It fucking sucked.
No.
It was fucking awful.
Oh, no.
One of the things I've always liked about the character of the Doctor is that the Doctor is normal. Like, I don't know how to describe that. Like, for a Time Lord, the alien that they are, there's nothing special about the Doctor. It's just somebody who stole a piece of technology and is flying the universe to right wrongs because the Doctor, if it's, the Jodie Whittaker version or the David Tennant version or Tom Baker, whatever, they know that that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Well, the resolution to this story explains that, no, the Doctor is actually like the one, quote, like the special person, and that the 13 lives of the Doctor that we've seen on screen are just a tiny amount, and that he's actually had thousands of lives in the past, and that just had their memory wiped. And so it turned the Doctor into like Neo from The Matrix. Oh, no. And I was like, fuck, no, don't do that. And just watching it, I was like, because the whole thing about the reason that the Doctor doesn't know that other incarnation that she had is because that life came from before her memory was wiped. Oh. And I, like, just in my mind, I was like, I was thinking of other ways to do that. Like, what's a different way that you could have a Doctor not know who they are in the future, whatever. And my idea was have that Doctor that she meets, played by, I think, Joe Martin, be a distant future Doctor who's so old that she has dementia and she can't remember her past. And then have this whole thing about the power of memory, and it could end with her just kind of flying off into the ends of the universe with her TARDIS, but secure in the knowledge that her ship, the TARDIS, is kind of cataloging her memories so that they're not lost to the universe or something. Like, that could be a nice, poignant story about aging and memory and the importance of that, not only to yourself, but to those around you.
Right, right. A beautiful little character moment.
And it literally came to me in like 2 minutes after watching the episode. And like, so that's apparently as much thought as they gave to this plot point, because I landed on that, if I do say so, gorgeous storyline in a very small amount of time.
Oh, it just sounds like they got too excited about the Neo factor, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the current showrunner is named Chris Chimble or something like that. I don't really know anything about him or his writing or background or anything, but I have not been thrilled with these couple seasons of this current Doctor, and it has nothing to do with the Doctor. I really like Jodie Whittaker, and I just wish she had better material to work with. But anyway, I haven't seen the newest episode that brings back Captain Jack, who's one of Doctor Who's most popular characters, played by John Barrowman.
What has he been in?
Aside from Doctor Who, he was on Arrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Played the bad guy, Merlin.
Yeah, all right. I see his face.
He's a tremendously charismatic actor. And he was starred in the spin-off Torchwood also.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Anyway, so yeah, that's all my news. The Doctor Who sucks. Snyder Cut sucks.
Still.
It's a glimmer of hope for Sandman with...
Fingers, toes, legs, everything crossed. Want Sandman to work out so badly.
I think it will.
I think it will too. I am hopeful in that regard.
Now we're going to get to the meat of the episode.
Yes.
Where we talk about the newest Vertigo film adaptation, Wonder Woman 1984. And you may be thinking, but Kirby, how is this a Vertigo adaptation? Well, dear listener, allow me to educate you. I don't know, how is it? I can't remember now.
A certain MacGuffin makes an appearance.
Yeah, so Wonder Woman 1984 came out Christmas Day, and it is set in the year 1984 and features the character of Wonder Woman.
She's back.
Yeah, tracking down or using or whatever the Dreamstone, which is a piece of the Sandman. Like that's a prop from Sandman.
Which we have discussed before.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it at length. The Dreamstone is responsible for 24-hour diner and that good stuff. So yeah, that's an artifact that is far more connected to the Vertigo universe than the DC universe proper because of Neil Gaiman. Because obviously it was created in the original DCU, but now it's Vertigo. Right. And so when I first saw that, I was like, what the fuck? There's the Dreamstone in this?
That was funny, because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I can see where Colby would be like, what the fuck?
Because it's a completely different item in this. It doesn't have the same backstory, doesn't have the same power set or whatever, but they just slap the name Dreamstone on it so that they can have some name recognition, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious if things, because I know, like, character creation rights, like creators have certain ownership of characters that they create. Like if somebody were to use John Constantine, then Alan Moore would get a few bucks. Although I think he signed away his rights for that. So Steve Bissett would get a few bucks. But I wonder if that same thing applies to items, like Dreamstone.
That's a good question.
And if so, even though Neil Gaiman didn't create it, because it was created in the comics in the 60s or whatever, I wonder if he would still get a cut of that, because he kind of shaped its origin and history and everything.
That's a good question.
Mm.
I just assumed that it belonged to DC so that they may, use it willy-nilly as they
Yeah,
please.
exactly. And it probably is. I'm just curious about that, because, again, even though characters are owned by DC or Marvel, oftentimes their creators still get a cut of the residuals for creating them. And I don't know. Would be curious to find out. Should tweet Neil Gaiman and ask. Anyway, so Wonder Woman 1984 came out in 2020, directed by Patty Jenkins. Sequel to 2017's Wonder Woman. Right off the bat, this movie's a fucking mess.
Yeah. Speaking of Snyderisms and quote-unquote epic canon.
Here's a good question about it. Do you know why it's set in 1984?
I just assumed that it was to ride the 1980s wave that has been permeating cinema and television in the past several years.
Could be.
Or?
Better question is, does Patty Jenkins know why it was set in 1984? Because I don't think anyone does. There's no reason for it to be set in the 80s.
It's totally to the studio wanting to ride the nostalgia wave.
Yeah, it could.
What's popular right now? The 80s.
Yeah, hey, that Stranger Things show was good. Let's do that. I think I read that they actually filmed in the same mall set from Stranger Things season 3.
That one surprised me. I thought it looked familiar. I was like, have we been in this mall before?
But the only reason I can think of that it's set in 1984 is because they can't call it Wonder Woman 2. You can't call it that. Because if you did, when you shortened it, it would be WW2.
Okay.
So unless they said it during World War II, you can't call it that.
True. There might be some confusion.
Yeah.
Oh, they're like, we already did World War I. That's passé.
But other than that, like there's one 80s song in it. What they show of the 1980s, like it doesn't impact the plot really at all. It could be any time. There's like tensions in the Middle East about oil. Hey, welcome to the 2000s. You know, like that it's not just 80s. There's a Donald Trump style character in there. Again, could be modern day.
Right. And I think that's what's so frustrating with this sequel is that you can see a lot of ideas that are never fully realized and are never fully acted upon. Like in the first, I think, 15 minutes of the movie, we get that Max Lord voiceover where you're talking about, hey, you can have more, you can do more, you can be more. And we see all this glossiness from the 1980s, the yuppie era, where, that still permeates today. Like, I think you could easily apply that to our generation and the idea that, like, you should always be striving for more, more, more. But they don't do anything with it. Yeah.
So let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay. What's your book report?
So yeah,
try to explain this movie as concisely as possible.
Oh man, I don't know. It might be easier for me to learn to turn off my iPhone. Yes, Wonder Woman 1984. So many.
So it's Wonder Woman. She's in 1984, I think. Maybe.
I think, possibly. And she's working at the Smithsonian and fighting crime in her off hours, covertly fighting crime. We'll get to that later. God. And she meets a friend, Barbara, played
Barbara.
So,
I'm just gonna cut in right now and bring that up. Please. So, Barbara Minerva is played by Kristen Wiig. They're buddies at the beginning, but obviously she's going to be the villain. She's going to turn into Cheetah. Everyone knows that. But her name is Barbara, and they cast Kristen Wiig. As a fan of Flight of the Conchords, in which Kristen Wiig had a guest appearance on an episode playing a character named Barbara, I cannot get past that. Because there's a reoccurring joke in the episode where every time one of the Conchords, like Brett or Jermaine or whoever, says her name, they pronounce it Bra-Bra. And it's this reoccurring joke where he's like, yeah, I went out with Bra-Bra. He's like, her name's not Bra-Bra. There's no such name as Bra-Bra. And then at the end of the episode where they're talking to her, he's like, oh, hi, Barbara. And she's like, you keep mispronouncing my name. It's pronounced Bra-Bra. And so every single time her name was said in this movie, I chuckled slightly because that was probably the worst idea to cast her in the role of a character named Barbara. For me personally, because I could not get past that.
And once you hear it, it's there forever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Barbara and Diana become good friends.
Do they though?
Do they though? Yeah, we'll get to that too.
Talk a couple times at work.
There'll be so many parts in this review where we're like, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. And what's his name? See, this is
Max Lord?
Max Lord, thank you. Played by Pedro Pascal.
One of like 3 DC characters in this fucking thing.
No kidding. Because we always need 2 villains in every fucking DC movie. He plays this huckster and shexter who is looking for the MacGuffin, the Dreamstone, which just so happens to be in the possession of the Smithsonian, and he seduces and tricks Barbara into getting it for him.
For like 10 seconds.
For like 10 seconds. So their relationship lasts all of 10 seconds, and then they have this really strong connection throughout the rest of the film. Or do they? And, of course, this Dreamstone allows whatever your heart's desire is to come true. For Diana, it's wishing that her true love, Steve Trevor, had never died. So, of course, we can get Chris Pine back into the sequel. And from there, it's, gotta catch the bad guy.
Kind of.
Kind of. But is it, though?
Yeah, again, this movie is a fucking mess. From scene to scene, from character motivation to act break, like nothing makes any fucking sense. One of the worst movies I saw this year.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly because I rewatched the first. I should have done it in reverse, actually. I rewatched the original Wonder Woman right before I watched this. Mm-hmm. And every time I watch Wonder Woman 2017, which is what it's called now, or is it Wonder Woman 1916? I don't know, whatever fucking year.
WW1. Yeah,
WW1. Every time I watch that movie, I like it a little less. Because I see more of the cracks in it. And that's another, that's one of the things that really bugs me about it is it's not Wonder Woman's movie, it's Steve's. Like, he's the one who propels the plot forward. He's the one who gets her to tag along. He's the one who's like, we gotta stop this. And she's just like, okay. And she fucking, accidentally kills the villain, basically. Or maybe. The ending of that movie is a fucking mess, too. Plus, I've already seen Captain America First Avenger, so I've already seen the movie. There's little things, like the whole thing about her crossing no man's land. If one person with a shield is enough to block all of the guns on the German sides, then the good guys could have passed really at any time. It's not. There's a lot that adds up every time I watch a movie. Oh, and what's his name? Stryker from X-Men Origins, Danny Houston.
Yes.
That's one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
I fucking hate him in that.
Oh, Danny.
And I hate that character, and I hate everything about it. But that said, I should have watched Wonder Woman 1 after Wonder Woman 1984. Because I would have liked it a hell of a lot more.
Yes, you probably would have. That's true.
And that said, all of my complaints said, I still think Wonder Woman 27... Fuck, this is going to get really annoying. I still think the original Wonder Woman is fine. Mm-hmm. It's a decent enough action movie. There's plenty of, quote, good action movies that probably have similar gaps in logic or whatever. So I can't hold it against it too much. It just sticks out in my mind more in that movie because I'm more deeply connected to comic book movies. And so it's easier for me to see when things don't work in them. I don't know. Maybe. That's my excuse. That said, Wonder Woman 1984 is a mess on any level. Agreed.
I still like Wonder Woman 2017 very much. It is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I think there's still a lot of it that holds up. And that could be very well as a woman who loves comic books. It was like, oh, finally. And the story behind that, I don't know how much you have read into Patty Jenkins' efforts to get Wonder Woman made, but, it really is what you could call a labor of love.
Yeah.
She likes superhero characters. She loves the first Superman. She has a really strong connection to that movie. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to make Wonder Woman for a long time. I think she first showed interest in 2004 or something. Yeah. Said, I want to make this movie. And she fought with the studios because, of course, many film studios, when movies tank, in this case, female superhero movies, instead of the studio just being like, oh yeah, we made a shitty movie, they say something like, oh, well, female superhero movies aren't popular right now. Sword and Sandal epics aren't popular now. It's not that we made a bad film. It's just that, people don't like to see this. And Patty Jenkins had a very good idea of how she wanted to tell the story of Wonder Woman. And the studio basically told her at the time, no. They wanted, you and I have talked about this before, they wanted to basically take a woman and slap her over a man's storyline. They wanted her to be macho and lopping people's heads off, and Patty Jenkins was basically like, that's not the story I want to tell.
That reminds me, have you seen the picture that Zack Snyder shared?
No.
Of... Speaking of lopping people's heads off.
Oh, no.
So in Batman vs. Superman and in Wonder Woman 2017, there's that picture of Wonder Woman and her team of Howling Commandos. Whatever. That's what they are. It's fucking dumb. Anyway, there's that picture of them,
Yeah.
So that picture was taken or used or whatever while filming Wonder Woman. Batman versus Superman was filmed first, but that picture was supposed to be in that movie. So Zack Snyder had his own version mocked up. There was a picture of Wonder Woman and what looked like an actually really cool team of warriors. There was like a samurai and some like Russian Cossack dude with a big hat. And they looked really cool, the little team. And then right in the middle was Wonder Woman with a look of just pure bloodlust on her face. Like, "Argh!" And in her hand was like 5 decapitated heads.
What?
Yes.
What? Snyder made this?
Yes.
Why?
That was going to be the picture. That was going to be the picture that Bruce Wayne sends her at the beginning of Wonder Woman, and that she sees in Batman versus Superman on the computer screen.
So she could be like, "Oh, better days."
Yeah, exactly. Because it was supposed to be her little team of warriors.
Yeah.
And it got changed because then, while Patty Jenkins was directing Wonder Woman, she changed all those side characters and made the Scottish sniper and the Steve Trevor and the Native American stereotype. And so then that picture had to change. But that's just funny that you mentioned lopping heads, because up until the production of Wonder Woman, that was going to include lopping heads.
That's exactly what it was going to be, yeah. And that's why she dropped out of it, because at the time, the studio execs were like, "No, we want you to tell it this way." And she was like, "Well, thank you, but no thank you." And so I think there was something like 30 scripts written until...
Well, and it's also worth noting that Zack Snyder has a story credit on the original Wonder Woman. So his stink is still there.
Oh, yes. and that unfortunately permeates through all the DC films.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like those Snyderisms again. So all of that to say that... and another interesting thing about the first Wonder Woman, I don't know if you know this, but like the biggest criticism it gets from... me included, is like that ending fight scene of CGI mishmash. That was not her idea.
Yeah,
She
I
didn't
heard
want
about
that
that.
there. But the studio was like, "No, put it in. Yeah. So, they had to do that. And as a result, because it was so last minute, it looks horrible.
Has she said anything about what her ending was, though?
It was just going to be like a knockdown, drag-out fight between Diana and Ares, but as played by David Thewlis. He wasn't supposed... In her script, he wasn't going to transform into some huge armored monster.
That's how Ares always looks in the comic, though.
Well, yeah, but it's just not executed well in the
That's
final
true.
product.
I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know if that would work any better, to be honest. David Thewlis getting, like, a middle-aged British man getting pummeled by Gal Gadot.
I don't know. It might have not have worked either, but I think I would have liked to have seen her original vision as opposed to, it's like, we're just going to paint this.
And at least it would have been real, maybe. Who knows? Who knows if it was even going to be. But at least it would have been, there would maybe be some connection to the character. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So all of that to say, I don't know too much of what went on in the writing room between her and the other screenwriters for Wonder Woman 1984, but to see her come with such a vision and passion for the first film, and then you watch the second one, like you said, you're like, what is this hot mess?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around if she's a good director or not. She's made 3 movies. Monster, I remember enjoying, but I haven't seen it since it was new. It's like a small, dramatic film. That movie's all about Charlize Theron, it's her movie, really. Then Wonder Woman, then Wonder Woman 1984. So it's like good, fine, bad.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder how much studio interference there really was with Wonder Woman 1984.
She hasn't said that there's been any.
I don't know.
Realistically, you're going to get studio interference no matter what. When you're working with big budget superhero movies, it has to be collaborative.
Oh, sure.
It always will be, and you're always going to get notes, and you're always going to get people telling you what to do, and you can either make it work or you can't. And even people like Zack Snyder, who claims to have this singular vision, he's still taking notes all the time and still adapting it. His original version of Justice League had fucking Martian Manhunter in it. And the studio said no, and now he's forcing Martian Manhunter into the Snyder Cut, even though it's probably only going to be like a 1-minute scene that people are still... That's another Snyder Cut news. People are freaking out about Martian Manhunter's going to be in it. Like, well, easy up, guys. It's not like he's going to be a star. I mean, he's maybe going to have a scene.
Yeah,
he's going
to add anything.
Yeah, it's going to be that one storyboard that Zack Snyder showed everyone 2 years ago of General Swanwick turning into Martian Manhunter. Anyway, so I don't know. She seems to be very positive about the movie, so I feel like maybe this is the movie she wanted to make. It's just there's just a disconnect between that campiness that she wanted to infuse it with and then how it actually came out. I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Because it doesn't feel slapped together. Like, it feels like there was a lot of work and love put into this. It just didn't turn out right. That happens all the time.
And that's a good point. You're right. I think this is probably the movie that she set out to make. I'm just curious about I just want to know what those conversations were like why they thought that this would resonate in the ways that they felt it should.
Well, to be honest, it's not getting terrible reviews. It's middle of the road. A lot of people like it. The fan reaction has been fairly positive.
Really? The fan reaction?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
And I think it's a lot of wanting to like it.
Oh, I get that. Because I wanted to like it too. I really, really wanted to like it. And there are things I like about it. I think it's probably Hans Zimmerman's best score that he's written in a while.
Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer?
Yeah.
Excuse me, yeah. Anyway,
I didn't even really care about the score. One of the things, though, I did like about it, they took that Junkie XL theme from Batman vs. Superman.
Oh.
That's like the Wonder Woman theme, like.
Yes.
So that shows up in Wonder Woman 2017. And actually, this last time I watched it, I was like, "Whoa, fuck, really?" Because it shows up out of nowhere and it doesn't fit the score around it at all. It's like orchestral action movie score, and then suddenly, in the middle of fighting a bunch of German soldiers, this 80s guitar lick kicks in. I'm like, "Don't do that." It's like, fuck me. Adapt it, for God's sake. Whereas in Wonder Woman 1984, they use that theme, but orchestrally. It's fit into the score, and it works a hell of a lot better like that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't notice that when I watched it. I'll have to watch it again.
During the whole stupid car chase scene.
Oh boy.
Where I'm pretty sure she murders those kids. Okay, let's go through, maybe not scene by scene, but let's start with the beginning.
Yes. Very good place.
So, little kid Wonder Woman is participating in a decathlon or something for really no discernible reason.
No. It's a reason to get us back to things.
Exactly. It's a 10-minute sequence that could have been 2 minutes, just to justify throwing in Hippolyta and Antiope one last time.
Right.
Because everyone loved, what's her name?
Robin Wright.
Robin Wright. Everyone loved Robin Wright in the first movie, even though she has 3 minutes of screen time. So they had to give her 3 more screen minutes so that we can appease fans. And the whole purpose of that scene is to set up the golden armor and her belief in truth.
Right.
Which, do we really need a race to show that? That, it just, towards the end of it, I'm like, so is this going to be the whole movie? Or, is it all going to be on Themyscira, or are we actually going to go to 1984?
Yeah, well, and that brings up another issue with these movies, is how unnecessarily freaking long they are. Mm-hmm. And how much cooler would it have been if we went to Themyscira and found, what's the warrioress's name again?
It's the principal from Sky High is her name.
The principal from Sky High, yes. Let's just call her that. So the Sky High principal.
Yeah.
It would have been, you could have made an excuse to go back to Themyscira and, oh, by the way, this legendary warrior of the Amazons has been there the whole time, just kind of hiding out with her armor. If you really wanted to take us back there, and I get it, Themyscira is beautiful, it's lovely this time of year, who wouldn't want to visit? But it adds nothing to the movie. And
realistically, that fucking gold armor doesn't add anything to the movie at all.
But either. It could have, is my point.
Yeah, I mean, it could have, but it's the Alex Ross armor from Kingdom Come. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And they, instead of just having her be like, oh, this is some armor I got because this is going to be a hard battle, they have to have a big reason for her to have it, which is pointless. You don't need to explain why a mythical character with mythical armor has a set of mythical armor.
No, you don't. You don't. There's better ways to do that. Well, and I guess that feeds into a whole bunch of the rest of the movie, which is all about telling and not really showing. But anyway, please continue.
But anyway, they introduce that armor twice.
They do.
They show it, they kind of explain it, and then, you gotta tell the truth, you little idiot. And then at the halfway point or whatever, she's like, oh yeah, this is the armor that I found. And it used to belong to Linda Carter, and then a bunch of dudes killed her. Or did they?
We'll get to that.
Which that character, she's not a character from the comics. Shocking. But she is an actual mythological character. She shows up in the 12 labors of Hercules or whatever. One of his labors, he goes to Themyscira and beheads that Amazon.
Like you do when you're an ancient Greek hero.
So, from the
flashback.
Yeah, the flashback, decathlon, swimming, horseback riding, fireworks shooting. From that, we smash cut to the distant future of 1984. And one of the biggest sins of period movies like this, specifically of the 80s, is that they want it to look so 80s that they make it look more 80s than 80s.
In the actual 80s.
Nothing in this movie is aged. It all looks fresh out of a bag, fresh out of a costume department. There's no creases, there's that scene of everyone in the aerobics, doing aerobics, riding on the little bikes, stretching in the gym. Yeah. All the leotards look a little too vibrant and a little too bright and everything like that. The Coke machine doesn't have any scuffs on it.
Right. Everyone's walking around with a Walkman.
Yeah, exactly.
Which not everyone could afford at that time.
And a perfectly pristine Walkman that they're positioning towards the camera so you can see it, And it's everything, all the cars look brand new. No, they had old shit in the 80s.
Right? There were still people driving around in, early 70s Pintos.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, there should have been a few Pintos just exploding for no reason.
Yeah. It would have made as much sense as the rest of the movie.
Yeah, so you show the quote, 80s. And one of the things that struck me immediately, we'll get into the mall scene in a second, but after the mall scene, there's a scene where she goes to, dinner by herself. Do you remember?
Yes, yeah.
And so she's sitting there eating, and the waiter comes up. Sorry, it's really hard to get through. And he's like, oh, you're alone? And he clears the... let me take... you won't be needing this second plate, or this second set of silverware, or this second napkin, because you're a fucking loser. And she's like, oh, I'm so alone.
You sad, lonely woman over 30.
It reminded me of Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, yes.
There's that scene where the main character goes to the restaurant and Jonah Hill's the waiter or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll have a table for one. And he's like, table for one? Really? He's like, huh, do you want a magazine or something? I'm afraid you're going to be bored. And then there's a whole deleted bit where he's like, yeah, no, just one table. No, we don't need two sets of plates. It's just one guy. Yeah, he's alone. No, I don't know why.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh, Forgetting Sarah Marshall Part 3.
So, okay, then rewind. Let's go back to the mall scene. God damn it. This is just hilarious to talk about, too. Because that whole mall scene reminded me so much of the opening of Superman 3.
It did.
Of just the goofy shit going on while Superman's secretly saving the day. He blows out the flaming toy penguin. And so the mall, everything mall-ish is going on at the mall because it's the mall. 80s mall has 80s mall stuff. And some thieves sneak in to try to steal something from a jeweler. Wonder Woman shows up. And the thieves go from wacky goobers who are trying to steal some diamonds to, I'm gonna murder a kid in 2 seconds. And it's so shocking and completely turns the movie on a dime that even the bad guys are like, what the hell? What are you doing, dude? That's a fucking kid. Turn Michael Jackson and try to dangle it over the edge. And then cut to Wonder Woman saving a little girl and winking at her, and then whimsical music playing while she's throwing her tiara around and breaking the surveillance video footage, and like also like that's not how that works. You can break that all you want, but you're still
the video is still there. Which opens up another reoccurring problem in this movie is that how the fuck is Wonder Woman so covert? She's not.
Exactly.
She's everywhere.
It's because she breaks the cameras and she goes, shh. Right. While I was watching it with my friend, like towards the end, when the Capitol is like being destroyed and there's all these people, there's like news crews all over. I can just like imagine her running through me like, don't tell anyone, grabbing the camera and throwing it down, and like a news anchor's reporting and she runs up and snaps their neck and then keeps running. Shut your mouth, shut up or I'll kill your family. Blah, blah.
Which she would have to do.
Yeah. But then like, man, it's so hard to talk about this movie linearly because it doesn't really make sense linearly. So she's supposed to hide her face because nobody knows her in the future. And yet at the end, she basically talks to all of humanity through the blue light that's shooting into the sky.
Exactly. And
tells everyone to renounce their wish. So, like, in the future, wouldn't Batman be like, wait a second, you talked to me in my head as a kid when I wished for my parents to be back to life and told me to kill them again.
Yeah. And you'd think that, like, you know, everyone around the world would be like, hey, remember that really crazy time in 1984 when an ancient goddess communicated to us all through her lasso of truth?
Well, like the core of the overarching DC movies so far, like the core tension, I guess, is the idea of Superman being the first superhero and what that means for humanity.
Right.
The Suicide Squad was formed because Superman existed. Batman hates Superman because they had a big fight. Would anyone give a shit about some stupid alien if they knew that a literal Greek god stopped the annihilation of the planet Earth in the 1980s because some dude wished too much?
Right. It totally undoes that whole dramatic arc that they tried to do for themselves.
Like, who cares about life on other planets when magic exists and everyone knows it?
There's a literal goddess that works at the Smithsonian. You know?
Like literally annihilate. Like the missiles were flying. Like
right.
the world was seconds away from being destroyed. Who cares if Metropolis got leveled? You know, like fuck.
Yeah, just business as usual.
And you can't have that kind of escalation if it comes before the other thing. You know, right. Like if this was set in 2018 or 2020 or whatever, that would make more sense.
It would. And so, which goes back again to the only reason I can think of that they wanted to set it in the 80s was, again, that nostalgia factor, because the 80s are really hot right now.
And you can't call it Wonder Woman 2020 or Wonder Woman 2021 or whatever, because that doesn't mean anything today. Like, in present day, you can't call it that.
Well, not without negative connotations.
That's true. Well, fucking 1984, it's got plenty of connotations with it. Thank you, George Orwell.
Indeed, and that's yet another missed opportunity. But we'll once again we'll get to that.
Okay. Also, after Diana saves that kid that those dudes or that one dude is going to kill, and then his friends are shocked about, she then ties them up and drops them on a police car, and the police car fucking flattens when they hit it. She fucking murders them. Like they're dead as hell. You can't get more dead than that.
Their brains and spines are soup.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, somebody saved the fucking little kid. No one knows who.
Who might it have been?
Who was it? I'll never tell. And it's so fucking goofy.
It is.
And then, then cut to the fucking Smithsonian. Diana has become one of those, I don't have a TV, people. Did you notice that? Yeah, I'm on TV. Oh, well, I don't have a TV. I don't watch TV.
She just knows where to magically be all the time to save people.
Did you notice when she takes Steve to her back room where she keeps her armor, though? She's got 15 TVs.
She does. So
she's a lying bitch.
Liar. You snob, Diana. Is this a good place to talk about?
Yeah. Wait, what? Any place is a good place to talk about anything, because none of this matters. This movie is... Anyway, go ahead.
Let's talk about Bra Bra.
Bra Bra.
again, you could accuse me of reading too much into this, but I don't think so. It's so disappointing to see what they decide to do with the character of Barbara Minerva and Cheetah. There's so many interesting things they could have done there in terms of her development into a villain, but they settled on the most the easiest, most stereotypical thing that they could do, which is girl needs makeover.
Yeah.
And then they try to add commentary about street harassment and agency, which goes nowhere.
Yeah, and the way that is brought up within the movie too is so anti-feminist that it pisses me off because it's brought up as a result of her wanting guys to like her. Right. So then it's her fault.
Get it, girl.
She says, I wish guys liked me or whatever. Or I wish I was like you because guys like you. And then suddenly she goes running and every guy's like, hey, baby, what's going on? And she's like, you fucking boys, I hate you.
Now you understand me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so like, oh my God, like, why would you do it that way?
Right.
There's plenty that could and should be said about that. But the way they do it puts it back on her. And that's so wrong.
And I don't think the writers meant it this way at all. I really don't. Like Patty Jenkins, I think she was really trying to say something, but what ends up happening is I think it's the most cringy, maybe not the most, but it's a cringy example of like white feminism, mistaking embarrassment for oppression, of shyness for neglect.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many cool, like, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. We as a society are still dealing with the ideas of what it means to, like, be in relationships, to be married, to have children. I can only imagine that was even more so for women back in 1984.
Yeah.
So why not have some type of character arc where, Barbara Minerva is someone who totally plays the game. She's confident, she's very intelligent, she's great at her job. So why not show her just getting put down for that at every opportunity? Instead of someone who's like, well, gosh, nobody likes me, and I don't have anything. It's like, bitch, you're a doctor at the Smithsonian.
Yeah, exactly.
You have like 3 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it opens with her talking about how, like, oh yeah, I'm a doctor and I'm working in the science. Oh, but my briefcase fell open and there go my papers.
And that's such a tired old fallback. Is like, ooh, clumsy. Yeah. Awkward girl, so awkward. And so it would have been so much cooler to actually, and it wouldn't have taken much to show her as someone who has really tried to play within the system and who the system totally has shut out.
Yeah.
So instead of finding ways around that or finding ways to deal through friendship and kindness and not letting that turn her into basically a monster, like, show us the point where she's like, okay, fuck you all, I'm gonna do it this way. I wish to become this apex predator who can, have complete power over people.
Well, and I know people who are successful, who are, at the top of their field or whatever, in whatever thing, or good at certain things, who are also awkward. And you know what? They don't give a shit about being awkward because they have the fullness of their life from the thing that they're good at or the thing that they like or whatever. Like, everyone's fucking awkward in something. And to see that, like, social awkwardness being the more important than being smart or intelligent or good at something, somehow that's the thing to aspire to. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who fucking cares? Who cares if your fucking briefcase falls open if you've got 3 degrees,
Exactly.
Or if you're just a generally, like, interesting person or whatever. Like, it's so fucking annoying that I always want what my neighbor has. And if I'm smart but not cool, then I have to be cool too.
Right, and that's basically the reduction of her character arc, is she learns how to walk in heels.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden, everyone's really surprised that Kristen Wiig looks like Kristen Wiig, and they're like, oh, wow, she's actually really pretty. Well, no fucking duh, she's Kristen Wiig. Yeah. So anyway, that's my rant on that.
So the whole fight scene in the desert then with the whatever that's called. We got to spend some time on Steve too.
We do.
Talk about problematic. But I was mentioning earlier about like her, saying shh and saving kids or whatever. So that scene where they're in the convoy, she's flipping cars and shit. Steve is in the back driving. The scene where she jumps off and grabs the kids. Which looks atrocious. Like, the CGI in that is terrible. And then when she lands on the little girl. I don't know if you noticed that.
That girl's ribs are broken.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, well, the part where Diana's wrist is around her neck is protected, but, like, the little girl is still completely squished, like, from the neck down. Like, it's... Jesus.
Right? Like, ah.
Like, you couldn't block that or frame that a different way? Like, why did they show it like that? It looks like she just gets smashed by Wonder Woman.
You should be covered in blood.
Yeah, it's like a little girl paste all over the roadway.
Splat. Oopsie. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, speaking of Steve, please, you first.
So Steve Trevor comes back because I'm pretty sure Patty Jenkins and Chris Pine are just really good friends, and they just always want to work together. He's been in 3 of her things now. He was in that miniseries that she did a couple years ago.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he starred in it. So I think she just likes working with him and is trying to find any way that she can. So that's fine. Bring him back. The way they brought him back is probably the worst on every level, though.
Ooh, yeah.
So first of all, Diana's conceivably thousands of years old. And she spent the last 70 years hung up on some guy that she had a fling with for a couple weeks. Right. Like, she couldn't have known him more than 12 days.
Yeah.
And she becomes so obsessed with him that her, like, life is over when he dies, basically. Mm-hmm. She goes into hiding, and she is pining over him. She's eating alone, being judged by waiters. And that's just such a weird thing to fixate on. This character has so little emotional maturity that she can't accept her grief and move past it. Mm-hmm. It's like they need that. And again, this character is thousands of years old.
Right.
Surely she's dealt with something like this before.
You would think. You would think.
And I mean, maybe not romantic love because they're Amazons, but surely she knows about life and death and accepting that.
Mm-hmm. Well, or you'd think that in the 70 years since, 60, 70 years since World War I, she would have had time to deal with that somehow. Yeah. You know?
Talk to a goddamn psychiatrist or make a friend.
Right.
Talk to a waiter.
Right. You have connections with other Greek gods. Like,
Talk to fucking Zeus or whatever.
Yeah. Or what's the Greek goddess of love? Like, ring her up and be like,
Aphrodite.
Hey, yeah, we need to talk.
Yeah, and so anyway, because she can't get over this crush she had 70 years ago, she accidentally brings Steve back to life. And instead of just bringing him back to life, for some reason the movie makes the baffling decision to put his mind in some other dude's body.
Yeah.
So...
problematic.
Yeah, and Steve's like, oh, I fucking found them living in this dude's apartment. There's a scene where they go to bed together, and... the next morning, she wakes up, she's laying next to Steve, and he's laying in bed naked, eating a Pop-Tart, and he's getting Pop-Tarts all over his chest. And he's like, yeah, I've had like 3 of these. And at that point, I just started laughing uncontrollably. And my friend Bear was like, what? I'm like, what the fuck are we watching?
What is this movie?
Fucking Steve Trevor's in some other dude's body, he's laying in bed with Wonder Woman, and he's got Pop-Tarts all over his chest. And she's like, let's just stay in bed forever. Yeah, he grabbed some more Pop-Tarts, and yeah, let's do it.
Make a weekend out of it. Oh, yeah.
And so, again, she's just fucking this dude that has no idea what's going on with his body. His life has been taken over by somebody else. He probably lost his job, didn't show up for work in a week because Steve Trevor's in his body, working him like a marionette. Some Amazon is fucking him.
Right.
He's
so confused.
Yeah, and then again, if they had said something about it, oh yeah, well, I just needed the guy's body, but now I'm me, and he's on the other side of the world. He's on vacation. He's with his family. Something to alleviate the weirdness of that. And then at the end of the movie, as if to try to do that, she meets up with that guy who's like, wow, I don't know where I've been for the last few weeks.
You look familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And I joked with my friend, yeah, I lost track of a lot of time, and for some reason my dick smells like you. And I don't know why. And she's just like, yeah, that's weird. See you later.
Exactly. Don't know, dude.
Oh my god. And again, a movie that is trying to say something about the male gaze and dudes hitting on chicks without them liking it, then has Wonder Woman basically become a date rapist.
Basically, yeah. And it's so funny, not funny, haha, but being based in 1984, where there's a lot of entertainment we all like from the 80s, but if you look back at a lot of those movies...
Yeah, the sex comedies of
yes.
that, Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds.
There's things about, consent in those movies that have not aged well
exactly.
at all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of... I don't know. It's kind of like a dig towards guys with the idea, if that had been a woman, people would have been like, oh my god, that is so gross and disgusting and misogynistic. But it's the idea that, well, it's okay for guys. They'll fuck anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, he probably had the time of his life.
You guys are horny all the time, right?
That's just so weird. And
just... If you're gonna go, like you said, this is based in magic. Just bring Steve Trevor back.
Exactly. Just plop, there he is. Where am I? And that's another thing. He's mystified by modern day things like subway cars. Yeah, they had those in the 1800s. Right. Oh, look at the magic escalator. That was invented in the 1890s. What's this garbage can? Surely he's seen art before. Come on.
You're kidding. Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up, too, because they do with Steve Trevor what I gave them a lot of respect for not doing with Diana in the first Wonder Woman.
But they do that a bit.
A little, but not too much.
What's this magical ice cream? Oh, it's so cold.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of to be expected. They'd never treat her like she's stupid, though. They just treat her like she's a fish out of water. Yeah. She's come from this place that's been totally sealed off to the modern world. But they never treat her like she's an idiot, which a lot of those movies do, especially with female superheroes. If you watch the Supergirl movie, oh my god. But yeah, with Steve Trevor, it's this constant rotation of, ooh, look at him, he doesn't understand how things work. And it's yeah, guys, that was maybe funny the first time.
But he can fly a modern jet.
Right.
He gets in there let's just do this, and there we go, we're good. What the fuck? That's not the same as the biplane that you flew in the first movie.
Not at
that
all.
You barely flew in the first movie.
So yeah, there's a lot of license taken with that I like so many things in this movie does not really pay off.
And she can make things turn invisible for some reason. And she's like, yeah, I made something turn invisible 5 years ago. What the fuck?
Right. Because yes, the concept of an invisible jet was too cheesy. Yeah. So they had to give her magic invisible powers.
And that's another thing. So when we were watching it, the invisible jet to me is always dumb. Just let her fly. Yeah. But Bear was telling me that in Joss Whedon's script, when he wrote one in 2003, the explanation for the invisible jet was it was Steve's plane that when he crashed in Themyscira, the Amazons rebuilt it, and when they left. As they're flying out, it's got that stealth shield around Themyscira. The stealth particles rubbed off on the jet. So that's why it's invisible. Okay. That's a really fucking easy explanation that would work. But to have her wah 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 conjure invisibility, and then what the hell happened to that jet? First of all, she can't fly it. So I just like to imagine that again. That guy that. That's lost a chunk of his life to traveling the world with Diana. Like he just walks out of his apartment one day and just breaks his nose. I'm what the fuck? Just walked into something that felt like a plane?
Yeah. Yeah. It would have made more sense anyway.
And then she can't fly it, so where is it now? Did they just crash it or?
Good question. It's out in the desert somewhere. One day a pack of camels will hit it.
And then there was another... the thing about her flying, too. They give her this power to fly, And she learns how to fly because Steve told her that it feels like the wind in your wings or something. So they have a really long scene of her learning to fly. Then in the next, so she's up there forever, gliding on the wind currents and flying. She leaves Washington, D.C. to go flying, then lands back down in Washington, D.C. to get a suit with wings on it.
Right.
So why even have her learn how to fly when they give her a suit that has wings?
That's a good question. I can't answer it.
And then she doesn't even need the fucking suit. Already, A, she can fly. We just saw her. B, she gets that suit because, like, she's lost her powers a bit, you know? Mm-hmm. But she regains her powers because she says goodbye to Steve. So she gets her powers back, flies over to fight Cheetah, and then just easily beats her.
Right. In another CGI mishmash.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yeah, and I don't think anyone has cohesive answers for that.
And then Max Lord is like telling the world, "Hey, give me your wishes." And we got to go back to this. What the fuck was Max Lord's plan?
I don't think he had one.
But that's just the thing. He knew about the wishing stone. Mm-hmm. He's researched it. He knows about it. He conceivably could just say, "Give me all the power."
Right. Yeah.
So why did he need to become the wishing stone and then take people's wishes, take the bad side? Like, is that really how it works? You know, like, I want $1 million. Okay, but you're also going to kill your wife. Like, he can just throw anything. And then, like, even after the fact, like that dude that he swindles out of his land or whatever, he's like, "Oh, well, I want all your oil fields." And he's like, "Well, I don't have oil fields anymore." Well, then I want your army instead. Like, you can just do that. You can change your mind well after the fact. Like, that's fucking dumb.
It is. Well, and it's like you pointed out, too, in a prior conversation, that it's a hole in the movie. Like, why wouldn't he just wish for all the power in the world so he doesn't have to, I don't know, replace his organs?
Yeah.
Have an organ transplant?
He spends half the movie just shivering and bleeding from the nose while he's sweating profusely and his eyes turned red. He's like, "Wouldn't it be great if you could get me to the White House really quick?"
And he gets set, and you also said this earlier, and I agree, is that it ends up being mostly Max Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Max Lord, 1984. He's the star. Pedro Pascal's in this far more than Wonder Woman, and he learns more than her, and he's the one who's the catalyst for everything, and he's the hero in the end. You know, like, he's the one who gets to be reunited with his son, and
what's important.
And did you know, so, like, he takes, like, the Air Force One or whatever, the helicopter, out to this island where he can broadcast in the world, and then he's like, "I gotta get back to my son." I was like, "What, are you gonna fucking swim there? Like, what the hell?" And then it just randomly cuts back to Washington, D.C., of him getting off that same helicopter, and, "Where's my son?"
And they magically find each other.
Yes.
Daddy! Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's, again, so many things about this movie that are just done clumsily. It's like, okay, you want to imbue both villains with a sense of humanity and sympathy. Fine, but it adds nothing to the story. And if anything, it detracts from it. And your main character, Wonder Woman, gets shafted.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with Max and Steve, again, just becomes the man's story. Like I felt the first Wonder Woman was. I felt it was Steve's story with her as, like, the dragon, quote, the tough, the muscle that the hero needs.
Interesting.
And that's another thing that I fucking hated about the first Wonder Woman is the fact that they changed her origin. Mm-hmm. This pisses me off more than anything because the original origin of Wonder Woman is all about Hippolyta creating her daughter out of clay and the love of her mother, like, being imbued in this creation. She puts so much of herself into it that it literally comes to life. It's about the bond between a mother and a daughter, and the magic that Hippolyta gives her her power. Mm-hmm. Now, no, she's Zeus's kid.
Of course.
So it takes the power away from the feminine and gives it back to the masculine. She's now the instrument of Zeus. She's his fucking sword. They literally break the sword and say, "No, you're the weapon." Yeah. That irritates me so bad because it feels like it's this character who should be fundamentally feminine is now more masculine than the gods.
I did see it that way. Understandable. Yeah, I can see. Especially since Patty Jenkins had to fight so hard to be like, no, I don't want to tell a story about basically a guy in a woman's body who, like you said, has a lot of bloodlust and goes out to kill. Her strengths are what could be perceived as her more traditional feminine qualities, which is kindness and compassion, even in the face of people who are being complete assholes and may not deserve it.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I'm disappointed that they changed her origin too, but I do feel like the message that they were trying to get across with the first Wonder Woman, I feel like that it sticks the landing in terms of, her finally realizing, well, it's not about deserves. It's not about, what humanity deserves to have happen to us. It's about the idea that you do what you do because it's the right thing to do.
Are you talking about 84 or the first one?
The first one. I feel like that message lands. I feel like that...
The message of it was, she killed Ares, so war's no more.
No, that's not the message. I disagree.
But that's her whole point of her movie. Her whole point of her thing is, she's a weapon that Zeus created to kill Ares so that humanity won't fall into war anymore. During World War I.
But then I think they do a good job, though, of showing us that that's not really the case, because she is naive in that respect. That, if I just stop this person, I destroy this thing, then war is done. And when she obviously sees that that's not the case,
she goes into hiding.
Well, and Wonder Woman 1984 fucks that up something royal. To go back to Wonder Woman 1984, what the fuck is the message? What are they trying to say?
Truth, man. It's all about truth. Remember what Robin Wright said? You just gotta ride those horses, jump into the ocean, and fucking throw javelins and be true. Get your gold armor.
Right. It's all about be careful what you wish for, and I think, and tell the truth.
It basically boils down to just be happy with what you have. Peon. Could be worse.
Exactly. My friend Jess and I made a horrible joke about that. It's like, telling children in the Make-A-Wish Foundation, it's like, look, Timmy, I know you're going to die of cancer, but you just need to accept the truth.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a scene where when everyone's getting their wishes, and that lady and her husband are arguing, and he's like, she says something to him like, I wish you'd fuck off, or whatever, and he's like, yeah, well, I wish you'd drop dead, and then she collapses, and he's like, whoa, and he just stares at her, and then it cuts back later. This also got me laughing so fucking hard. It cuts back later to him, like, thinking, like, oh my god, what did I do? And in the background, you see her laying on the ground, and somebody giving her CPR. As he's completely ignoring her.
Damn! I didn't know I had that much power.
The way it's framed was so bad. Like, it looked like that was like a Monty Python skit or something. It looked like it was supposed to be funny, and it clearly wasn't.
Yeah. My poor wife who died, she's not dead yet! Yeah.
Christ.
Oh, yeah. It really was. I'm with you. It's one of the worst movies of the year, and it didn't have to be. And I just, again, like you said, you're probably right. I don't know anything about. I haven't read any backstory in terms of why the filmmakers decided to go in this direction. What Patty Jenkins thought that she was doing with this story, so I can't comment to that. But it just feels like. It just feels like, okay, we've delved back into that DC pit, that DCEU pit of them not having a clear sense of what they're really trying to say. Like, they think they do, but the way it translates to audience just doesn't translate.
Exactly. It feels a lot like Batman versus Superman.
It does.
Like, just messy. This one clearly isn't as dark, but just that messy. This scene is really cool looking, but how does it affect the rest of the movie? I don't know.
Right.
On to the next scene.
So you get this, 2.5 hour long, almost 3 hour movie where just nothing adds up. And you have all this extraneous baggage. And speaking of which, do you want to talk about Linda Carter?
Oh, yeah. So at the end of the movie, Principal Powers shows up, and she is I actually looked that up while we were talking. See, look. Principal Powers. I had to get her name.
Oh, Jesus.
So anyway, Principal Powers shows up, stops a thing from falling over, uses a line that Wonder Woman said earlier in the movie, and then wanders off into the distance. And it's a fun little cameo, probably the best scene in the movie.
Probably.
But also it's just like, what? Like, so there's another Amazonian out there just saving the day quietly. So Wonder Woman isn't special in that regard either.
Right. Right. Yeah, they're just secretly walking there. Well, she's probably keeping herself a better secret than
exactly.
Wonder Woman. And that brings me to something else that I just want to ask, like, people who like this. Because, again, if you're listening to us and you're thinking, well, you guys are just flat out wrong, fine. Each to their own. Whatever does it for you.
But we're not.
But we're not. Yeah. And I'm not saying that one of the things that movies about minorities or women get saddled with is, like, they get caught between that rock and a hard place of, like, well, why aren't you everything to everyone?
Yeah.
And I understand that it can't be that, but my question is, how can this movie be anything of substance to anyone? Like, if you like this movie just because, hey, I like the way it looks, I like Gal Gadot, I like, whatever, I'm not going to argue with you on that level, but it's like, the way that DCEU, and it's not just them, it's a lot of Hollywood movies now, like, they feed you tiny little cameos, like Linda Carter, or, like, for fans with the Vertigo comic books too, granted the average movie-going population isn't going to recognize the Dreamstone, but you did immediately. And so my question there is, because it goes nowhere, and because it's just like these little tidbits that they try to throw you, it's like, how is that satisfying? Like, how do you watch that stuff and you're like, oh, yay, this is the movie of this character that I wanted to see, when it's really just like, to me, it feels like you're just getting tossed scraps.
Well, to me, I mean, the scraps are what I enjoyed. Simon Stagg was in there. Hey, he created Metamorpho. That's cool. Moving on.
Right.
I mean, at least he's a comic book character. So.
Well, and I would argue, though, I would agree that at least his character could have a place in that movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't entirely out of place. It's just like more of the little stuff where they're like, well, doesn't this satisfy you?
Yeah.
We're showing you this thing, and it's like, well, okay, you have the thing, but are you going to do anything with it?
I don't think that's the thinking. I think it's just, the thinking is just throw in some fucking comic book stuff and we'll make a story around it. And that's how Warner Brothers operates. It's the diametric opposition, or whatever, to Marvel Studios. Whereas Marvel Studios, everything is about the characters, build the story around the characters so it makes sense.
Right.
I'll never forget listening to the commentary for the film Captain America Civil War, hearing the Russo brothers talk about introducing characters into that narrative, and how, like, Hawkeye doesn't show up until like an hour and a half in the movie. And, like, we kept thinking of earlier ways to bring it in, and then thought, no, it doesn't make sense for him to be there. He can only enter in the movie where he should. And they said that if you're writing a script and a character shouldn't do something, then that character can't do that thing. So if a character shouldn't do something, they can't. End of story.
Right. That might make it frustrating at times, but it does make it more clear for the audience. Yeah.
And it makes the writing better.
It does, yes. Yeah. You actually have to be vigilant.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a big Vertigo for me. So afterward, like, I was just so let down and angry, but I also laughed my way through this movie because it's so fucking dumb and ridiculous. I can understand people liking it on that aspect, or MST3K, I get that. So afterward, I was like, wow, that was terrible. And Bear was like, yeah, it was bad, but I liked it. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, that was awful. He's like, yeah, I know, it was awful, but I laughed my way through it. I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I laughed my way through The Room also.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call either of those movies good, though.
No, and at least with The Room, it sticks to its, batshit crazy theme, like, from the get-go, from the first time when a character opens their mouth to the very, very end, you're like,
hi,
okay.
doggy. Jesus. I was waiting for a Tommy Wiseau cameo in this flick, man.
You're tearing me apart, Diana! Yeah. And I guess that's just, in the end, what makes it a disappointment for me, and probably why I won't watch it again, because there wasn't enough there to make me laugh the whole way through.
That was actually the one thing that, when Bear said that, and I was like, Yeah, okay. The Room is a shitty movie that some guy scraped a bunch of money together to make. I can forgive that. This is a $200 million tentpole movie. This shouldn't be that sloppy. When you have that many cooks over a stew, it shouldn't come out with like jelly beans in it, you know?
Exactly.
Like for however overcooked some movies get, you know, the Transformers movies, objectively not good movies, but like at least there's a logic to them. When you watch a Transformers movie, you're not going to again, like it's like like my jelly bean metaphor. When you eat a tomato soup, you're not gonna expect to find some gummy worms in it.
Right, exactly. That's not what you sat down to that particular bowl of soup or movie for.
So yeah, the Transformers are the tomato soup. The gummy worms are Muppets.
Yeah, sure, right? Yeah, exactly.
WW84 kind of had Muppets with Cheetah. They certainly had Jellicle cats.
Oh God.
And that was the thing. So when she shows up at the end, all CGI Harry, and she's like, I'm here to fight you. And I was like, the classic comic book trope of the villains naming themselves, you know, because she's like, I'm not Barbara Minerva anymore, whatever the line is, and I was like, I'm not Barbara Minerva anymore. From now on, I'm Rum Tum Tugger.
Andrew Lloyd Webber would have loved it. Oh God, yeah. That just makes me so sad for Kristen Wiig, because it's like, oh, that could have been cool. It could have been cool, and it's great to see Kristen Wiig in I think she can be in a superhero movie. Well, she was obviously in a superhero movie, but
she was just playing herself though. She was playing every other goofy character that she's played.
Right, but it didn't have to be.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So I'm just saying, like they clearly hired her because that's what they wanted. They didn't hire her because they wanted range. They hired Kristen Wiig because they wanted Kristen Wiig, and they got Kristen Wiig. Yeah, and then in the end, they got Kristen Wiig with CGI.
Yeah. Just so many wasted opportunities. It's an excellent movie. I recommend everyone go and see it.
So what's your rating for real?
Personally, Verta don't. Again, I can't
Verta
see...
stop.
Verta stop, Verta halt, Verta don't, Verta 180
Was it a
from yes.
Gal Gadot or
no.
Gal Gadot?
Oh no.
Hey, how do you pronounce her last name?
I thought it was Godot.
I don't know that there's a consensus, to be honest.
Really?
I've seen her pronounce it differently. Oh. But almost always with a hard T. Oh, so she either says Gadot or Gadot. Or yeah, it's like, wait, what? Like, you don't know your own name pronunciation?
Oh, well, in that case, I would have to say, yeah, it's a Gal Gadot. I mean, again, other people there might be enough there for you to, have a good time with, but I don't see myself eagerly sitting down to this movie again. Yeah,
it's exhausting. It was fun to sit around and laugh at it once. I'm so glad I didn't watch it alone. If I'd been watching it alone, I would have been on my phone and not paying attention at all. Because after that fucking beginning scene of the Amazonian games, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Well, exactly, and I think that was part of my problem too, is you texted me and then I sat down to watch it later, and I was by myself, and it was really, really hard to stay with it. I was like, you know what, I think I have other shit to do. But... So I assume that it was will not make your top 10 for...
Yeah, no, that's a Verta stop for me. What else is there to say? I feel like we've talked it to death now. There's no reason to go any further other than, yeah, if you like it, re-examine your life. Take a film studies class.
You too probably have other things that you could do with your life. I'm sure there's a bathroom that needs cleaned, or a novel that needs to be written, or a soup kitchen that needs a volunteer. But no, if you liked it, please go to our social media. Whether you liked it, hated it, don't care. Go to our social media. Tell us how much you agree with us or how wrong you think that we are. We're on Instagram at Vertigo Voices. We are on Facebook. No, we're not on Facebook.
Just I am.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, but yeah, we don't have a page. Never mind. We're on Twitter. Excuse me.
Yeah, Twitter at Vertigo Voices. Follow, subscribe, like, share, tweet, twat.
However you do it.
Yeah. Our email is vertigovoices@gmail.com. Feel free to send us a letter, an electronic letter. And special thanks to me for whipping out that theme song. It was pretty good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And special thanks to my daughter for providing the Casio.
You're here.
Yeah, that's it. Next time we're going to do 2020 episode. It's going to be called Hindsight 2020.
Oh boy.
That was actually a joke that I will explain next time.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're done. Goodbye.